Radio. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back on a hump day Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN as the NFL is continuing to do business, or at least attempt to do business, over in Indianapolis. We'll get you some thoughts on the latest with the Eagles and around the NFL this hour. Plus, Paul George makes frankly, a very odd declaration on his podcast. And, of course, the Flyers have won 2 in a row since they've returned from the All-Star break. All that and more, you guys can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Coming up on the show, it's the Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg will join us coming up in less than 15 minutes from now. And then at 6:40 tonight, we will go live to Indianapolis, where Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, he will join us, talk more about all things football. But I got to start with the football still, because in a world where the Sixers are an abomination, the Flyers have been fun to watch all year, but I understand half of Philadelphia sports fans don't even care. We go to the football. And I thought there were a couple of things that were said yesterday. I was not here on the radio yesterday on 97.3 ESPN, so I didn't have a chance to really respond to what Howie and Nick Sirianni said at the Combine. And in a NFL where Jair Alexander could be traded from the Packers, Jonathan Allen could be traded from Washington, Matthew Stafford from the Los Angeles Rams, Harold Landry from the Tennessee Titans, the Philadelphia Eagles, they're not in a position where they are having to ask their players to, hey, you want to go somewhere else? We want to pay you. Well, not really. We don't want to pay you that much. Right. It's a completely different vibe. So the Eagles don't have that problem. But the Eagles have a completely separate problem. And that separate problem is, what do you do with Zach Bond? And I thought that Howie Roseman, who gave a pretty detailed answer about the Zach Bond question, I think it gives you a little insight into why Zach Bond will be back for the 2025 season. Now, I can't guarantee anybody else, but I can guarantee that the Eagles are going to make a legitimate run at bringing back Zach Bond, something that they made a huge mistake of 2 years ago when they let TJ Edwards walk and go to the Chicago Bears. Howie Roseman, when asked about the Eagles' history of not signing linebackers, said this.
To kind of put us in a box and say, hey, we're not going to play, and I'm not saying that you're saying that we're not going to pay because historically we haven't done that. I mean, part of what we do is evolve and look at things and see how things are affecting our team, how things are affecting the league, and seeing our place in that.
It's a very fascinating answer by Howie, because he basically is giving you the answer, like giving you the answer. Look, this is an organization that historically had only paid a couple running backs, and then they gave Saquon Barkley a free agent contract, the first free agent big-time running back they've signed since Ricky Waters for this organization. An organization that has historically not paid linebackers. Howie is saying, you know what? We evolve. We got to learn from our mistakes. We got to be better. We got to judge it on a case-by-case basis. And Howie Roseman goes on to explain that everything they do depends on this.
Everything really is player dependent. You know, when we talk about situations, it depends on the quality of play of the player, the person that we're talking about. And so you don't want to make any exceptions. Obviously, you have to have a vision of how you want your team to look. In the salary cap era, you have a certain number of resources that you can allocate, whether it's money or draft picks. And so whenever you do something, you're taking it from somewhere else. I mean, there's no way at the stage we are with our team, that we can do something major without it coming from somewhere else.
Amazing insight there, because again, he's telling you something without actually giving you all the information. He's telling you, okay, look, we're not bringing everybody back, okay? Some of these guys, we got to prioritize certain guys over others. And so I thought it was very intriguing that for an organization that has a long history of investing a lot of resources into a handful of positions, Howie Roseman sounds like a guy who's saying, look, I know historically that is what we do. You know, he made the comment at his presser yesterday that he likes to obsess over the offensive and defensive lines. So the Eagles are well aware of their history. They're well aware of what they've done in the past. But Howie Roseman is saying, hey, man, look, if we got to evolve, we got to adjust. This is the same Howie Roseman who said last offseason that I made a huge mistake, he said, in not prioritizing the secondary. And then what do? They prioritize the secondary. This is a guy in Howie Roseman who said, I made a mistake not doing a better job of replacing TJ Edwards. He did a better job this offseason. So Howie Roseman has admitted he has made mistakes, and he has gotten better at them. But I think also it is why Josh Sweat is gone. All right? The Eagles are basically going to pick Zach Bond over Josh Sweat. And the reason I say that is because earlier today on the Pat McAfee show, NFL insider Adam Schefter was talking. And Schefter was initially having a conversation about Trey Hendrickson, right? About how are the Bengals going to pay both Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase market value. And he mentions Josh Sweat as an example of a player who is going to impact Hendrickson's negotiations with the Bengals. Take a listen.
It's a hard deal to get done because you're talking about a guy that led the NFL in sacks this year. And you're looking at an offseason in which TJ Watt is going to have his deal adjusted. There's a few defensive ends. Myles Garrett, Micah is another one. Josh Sweat's going to kill it in free agency.
Yep.
So Trey Hendrickson, what is his production worth when he has gotten more sacks than guys who have gotten big deals in recent years?
It's a fascinating question brought up there because he says, he doesn't say, we'll have to see what Josh Sweat gets. No, he comes out and says Josh Sweat is going to kill it in free agency. So he's basically saying if Josh Sweat's going to do well in free agency, how much can Trey Hendrickson demand? And he had better stats than Josh Sweat did. Now, Sweat's a little younger than your Myles Garrett's and other guys in the league, okay? But if he is going to go on free agency and get a big contract, he's not going to get it from Philadelphia. He's not going to get it in an Eagles uniform because Philadelphia, they have other free agents to worry about. And to me, Zach Bond is number one. I don't think Sweat is back. I think Milton Williams and Mekhi Becton are both 50-50 propositions. I think Philadelphia wants Kenneth Gainwell to come back. I think they would like Oren Burks to be back, but there are no guarantees with either of those players. More Eagles talk coming up next. Dave Weinberg joins me here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City. Josh Hennig hanging out with you in the Ocean Casino Resort studios of Atlantic City.
It's Flyers Penguin tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Listen as Tim Saunders and Todd Fedorn bring you all the exciting play-by-play action.
Flyers get the extra attacker on Konechny. He's Travis Konechny.
It's Flyers 10.
Tomorrow night, coverage begins at 7:30. It's Flyers hockey all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia Flyers hockey, 97.3 ESPN.
You don't need a President's or Valentine's sale. Get to Matt Black Kia and save every day with over 1,100 new Kias in stock or en route. All with 0 down, 0 payments until May. Even low 1.9% financing for 60 months on 25 Kia Sorento and Sportage SUVs. So bring any trade, even if you're buried in a loan or lease. Matt Black Kia wants to get you released and into your new Matt Black Kia. Like the all-new 25 K4. Just $129 per month lease with 0 security deposit and only $36.95 due. Matt Black Kia, your PA and New Jersey Kia superstores in Abington, Egg Harbor Township, and Toms River, or right to your front door.
It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
With approved credit, $13.89 per thousand finance. Not all will qualify. Credit may affect down payment. Offers can't be combined. Go to mattblackkiamj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF. Rebates and incentives to deal expire 3/4/25. Matt Black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and on Route 37 in Toms River.
Spring forward with real unlimited data from Straight Talk this tax season and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2024 with select plans. So you can stream games during Mad March hours, check the weather for April showers, and watch gardening videos about May flowers. Straight Talk, real unlimited data, available at Walmart and straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 4/15/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires purchase of single line gold unlimited plan or higher. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted to walk up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbors' dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. The Sixers are in New York tonight to take on the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. Philadelphia, coming off a 32-point loss Monday to the Chicago Bulls, have lost 8 straight games. The Knicks, they've lost their last 2, but they're 2-0 against Philadelphia this season. The Flyers heading to Pittsburgh Thursday to continue a home-and-home with the Penguins. Tuesday night, the Flyers beat the Penguins 6-1, getting 2 goals from Noah Cates and a goal and 3 assists from Bobby Brink. Philadelphia has now won 3 straight. NFL, the Green Bay Packers have made a proposal to ban the tush-push quarterback sneak. If it goes to vote, it would need approval of 24 of the 32 owners to pass. The Eagles have converted 87% of this play since 2022. Major League Baseball, the Flyers continuing Grapefruit League play today facing the Toronto Blue Jays. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. We've got some rain to talk about, not a ton, but the next 24 hours will turn fairly damp and dreary. Clouds will roll in tonight with a low of 44 degrees. Tomorrow still mild at 61, but with periods of rain, especially in the afternoon. Friday, windy and cooler with sunny skies, high 48. Back to the 50s, but windy on Saturday, only 30s, much colder on Sunday. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
Craving a tasty breakfast or lunch? Come on down to Hot Bagels and more. They've got fresh baked bagels, irresistible spreads, and a mouth-watering selection of sandwiches, perfect for any appetite. Join them in Northfield, Atlantic City, Summers Point, and 2 locations in Margate for flavors that keep you coming back. Don't miss their homemade tuna and chicken salad, along with hearty soups. Order ahead or take advantage of their catering options for your next event. Hot Bagels and More, where every bite is a delight. Visit hotbagelsandmore.com or stop in today.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Joining us every Wednesday, it is our 97.3 ESPN.com sports columnist. His extra point columns are up on the website, as well as the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Dave Weinberg is back here on 97.3 ESPN. And Dave, if I'm judging from way I'm looking at you, you're down at your favorite trivia spot for Wednesdays, correct?
This is true. Yeah, back at Gusto Brewery for another Wednesday trivia. Apologize for the optics here, but I'm sitting in my car as always because the wind's too bad to talk outside.
Listen, you and I have had this conversation off the air. The fact that you at least get the audio right is the most important thing. So, I mean, there are people.
Good.
There are people who get the video right, but then the audio is horrible. So it's like you defeat the purpose. Like the whole purpose of doing it, for those who don't know, on this platform isn't just the video. It's the fact that the audio is 10 times cleaner than a phone call.
Right. Yeah, nobody wants to see me anyway. They want to listen to me, right?
Well, speaking of listening to you, Dave, I said before you came on, I think the Eagles have made it clear, whether you want to say it's indirectly and inference-wise or whatever. But, when Howie Roseman talks about we evolve, we judge it on a player-by-player basis, you can't put us in a box and say we don't sign linebackers. It sounds like the Eagles are going to sign Zach Bond and rectify the mistake that they made 2 years ago with T.J. Edwards.
Yeah, it does. And that was a big mistake. I mean, well, TJ kind of wanted to go back to the Midwest because he was from Wisconsin, but still, yeah, they I think they recognized that they made a mistake by letting him go, and then Zach Bone kind of like, I don't want to say fell in their lap, but I know they certainly weren't expecting him to be as productive as he was this year. So yeah, they're doing everything they can to keep him there. Sounds like he wants to be there, so that's a good sign as well.
Yeah, and the crazy part with T.J. Edwards, Dave, was that they never even offered him a contract. Like, they didn't offer him anything.
Right.
Like, they didn't. T.J. Edwards just come out and said, look, the Eagles didn't even offer me a contract. I was like, do you guys even want me to come back? Like, the Eagles almost assumed he was leaving anyway, like you mentioned. And T.J. Edwards was like, I kind of would have liked them to at least offer me something. So it sounds like, as Howie Roseman said yesterday, we learned from our mistakes here. Well, guess what? Howie learning from his mistakes is probably the only reason why this team has been competitive for the last 10 years.
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, as everybody knows, a few years back, I guess 2015, I think it was 2014, maybe, when he was banished to the back rooms of the Novacare,
right?
And yeah, I mean, he learned from those. He learned from that experience, and definitely applied it over the years. And yeah, I mean, whenever he makes a mistake, it seems like he always finds a way to answer it or to correct it and to move forward from it. And that's why they're where they are. That's true.
I also think it's becoming more and more clear, Dave, that Josh Sweat is not back. So with that being said, do you think that you feel comfortable in trusting the Eagles to fill that defensive end spot, even if it's not Josh Sweat next year?
I do. I mean, they always seem to find a way to, whether it's through the draft or free agency or promoting from within. I mean, there's been a lot of talk on Myles Garrett, obviously. It looks like he's staying in Cleveland. Seems like the GM there wants him to stay. And besides that, I don't know that the Eagles were really like serious players in that anyway, given the fact that Myles is 29 years old, and you can't give him a mega contract and expect him to keep producing at that position, as he goes into his 30s. So I think he'll be 30 in December. So the Eagles are probably making the right move by shying away from him. But yeah, I have a lot of confidence in Howie and Vic Fangio and whatever to be able to fill that position, no question.
And which is funny because this is the same Howie Roseman admitted yesterday that he's obsessed with offensive and defensive linemen. So, it's like, because someone was asking a question about, well, how you guys have invested a lot of resources in those positions. He's like, well, I'm kind of obsessed with them because, obviously the philosophy is we build from the inside out, which you could argue, people keep talking a lot about the Eagles' success, but let's be realistic, Dave. If it wasn't for that 1,700 pounds on the offensive line and Jeff Stoutland, I mean, I don't know if the Eagles have a 2,000-yard rusher in Saquon Barkley. I'm not saying Barkley would stink, but we saw Barkley in New York with a bad offensive line. Now he gets a really good offensive line, and you see how it impacts the team.
Oh, there's no question about that. The offensive line is what makes that offense go. Whether it's for opening holes for Saquon or DeAndre Swift the year before, or protecting Jalen. I mean, they're Yeah, they're the key. No question about it. I think. I mean, you as you said, you saw what Saquon can do or can't do with a mediocre to poor offensive line, and that's the same for any NFL running back. If you don't give them the opportunities, they're not gonna take advantage of them. So yeah, it's the offensive line is definitely the reason why he achieved the success that he had this year.
Dave, with that being said, how intensely should the Phillies pursue bringing back Mekhi Becton?
I don't know about the Phillies, but the Eagles should.
I'm sorry. I
He
mean,
might
maybe
be
Can
he might be a
Becton
pretty
hit
good power hitter.
right-handed?
Yeah, give him a DH spot, hit him a bat, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he had a really good year, but they've got a load of offensive linemen, right? I mean, I, I don't. I'm not going to break the bank or bend over backwards to bring him back. I mean, he did. If does he wants to come back? Yes. If they want him, if he's willing to take, a reasonable contract, then sure, yeah. I mean, he fit in very well with the offensive line this year. But I mean, if they lose him, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's not like losing Lane Johnson or Mailata or somebody like that. I don't think. Or Landon Dickerson, for that matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. They've done such a good job at developing and finding these guys, but then at the same time, it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. There's part of that kind of going through your mind. You can't hit 100% on all of these guys, right? At some point, one of them might not work. I mean, I don't know. I'm conflicted on the Becton thing personally because I think on one hand it makes sense to bring him back, but on the other hand, I'm not going to pay him. Like, I forget what the contract was they gave Brandon Brooks back in the day, but I'm not going to give him Brandon Brooks money.
Right. I'm with you there. Yep. No, absolutely.
I slipped up and did a Freudian slip. Let's talk about the Phillies, Dave, because Trey Turner looks like he is on track to be the new leadoff hitter in 2025. The current lineups the Phillies keep putting out has Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Bohm. Personally, I'm not a fan of this lineup because I wanted to break up the lefties a little more. But what is your take on the idea of, hey, let's put Trey Turner in a leadoff spot and change things up for this season?
I'm not opposed to it that much. I mean, I think when Turner's on, he's the better hitter than anybody there, really. And when he's in the groove and he's in the zone, you want him to get as many bats as you can get him. So plus he's much faster than Schwarber in terms of getting on base, stolen bases, that kind of stuff. So I mean, a much more disciplined hitter. You're not going to get the home runs that you're going to get from Kyle, but I'm not as opposed to it as some other people, I guess. I mean, I have no problem with Trey being the leadoff guy.
Yeah, I don't mind him being the leadoff guy. I just don't like Schwarber, Harper back to back. I think that's
I see what you're saying.
That's where my rub is because, and no offense to Alec Bohm, he was an all-star last year. He's had 2 very good years RBI. I just don't like Bohm being my 4-slot guy. There's something about him being there that bothers me, Dave, because I just don't think that he's, and maybe I'm just, old man, get off my lawn. I'm shaking my fist at the sky. But I mean, to me, Bohm is more of like a guy who, he's a contact hitter. He's not a power hitter.
Right. I would say flip-flop the two. Maybe Bohm as 2 and Schwarber as the cleanup, but that's still back-to-back lefties. So
well, like for
4,
example,
right?
if you told me that it was Harper 2, Schwarber 3, maybe I can work with that. You know what I mean?
Well, they're both lefties. They're still lefties. I don't understand the difference.
Schwarber's more of a threat behind Harper than Bohm is.
Wait, Schwarber's more of a threat to do what?
Protect Harper.
Oh, okay. I would rather have Schwarber as my cleanup guy. He's your power hitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my ideal.
So you're
I don't
thinking
think you're going to put it bat 2, but I would put Schwarber as the cleanup.
Well, what if it was Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, Castellanos 1 through 5?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I think that worked very well.
Because Harper has said he's willing to bat in the 2 slot if they need him to. So he's not against it, at least. And, Schwarber, I mean, for goodness sake, Schwarber's taking ground balls to first base right now. He says he'll do anything for the team this year. So I mean,
Right.
the poor guy's in a contract year. He's willing to play out of position if they need him to. It's like, good grief.
I understand they wield a lot of power because of their contract and their status and stuff, but wait, oh, so Harper's going to graciously agree to hit two? How about you just hit where you're supposed, where they write your name in? I mean, what does it matter? I don't. Why do people get to dictate where they're going to bat or where they're going to play? I don't understand that. I mean, it's the manager's job. You write down your lineup, and they see the lineup, and they hit there. What's the big whoop? I don't get it.
I think it goes back to the idea of psychology. Some of these guys are superstitious, and they probably think, I'm only good in this slot versus that slot. Baseball players are weird, Dave. I mean, they got all these weird superstitions and these, I can't step on the line on the base path and like all that stuff.
I get it, but I mean, I just don't see where your lineup should be dictated by superstitions. I don't. I just think the hitting coach, the manager, whatever, what pitching coach, whatever you want to call, they're the ones that dictate where they think the best lineup is going to be. So get out there and hit, whether you're hitting 2 or 7 or 6. I don't care. Just do your job, and you don't have to worry about the superstition stuff. I know I'm an old man too. I understand.
we could all shake our fists at the sky together. So
there you go.
Before I let you go, Dave, because the other thing with baseball is that, with the Eagles winning a championship, and I know you and I have had this conversation in the past, what do you feel that puts any legitimate pressure on the other teams in the city? Because, I mean, you look at the Sixers completely spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
While Brandon Graham is sitting in the stands looking around like, why the heck did I even show up to this game the other night? And I look at the Phillies, a team that, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Like, to me, I almost wonder, like, do other players, do you think they say they take inspiration from it? Do they think they take pressure from it? How do you think the other teams in the city look at the team that wins the championship?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know about pressure. I mean, I think they're celebrating the Eagles, and they're no doubt happy for them. I mean, I think the Phillies' pressure is probably self-inflicted, only because they've become so close, like you said, so many times, and now the window seems to be closing like it did when 8, 9, 10, 11, 2008, 9, 10, 11, and then it was shut, and now it's open again, and it seems like it's closing again. So I think that's where the pressure is, that they finally have this. They have a limited opportunity now to finally live up to their expectations. I think that's where the pressure comes through more than anything.
Well, I'll give out my prediction for the season again. I think that by the time we get to the trade deadline, Andrew Painter will be your 5-starter. Ranger Suarez will be traded.
Oh, okay, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. What do you think they're going to do this year? Is it way too early, or I'm just
I mean, it's probably a 90-95 win team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, yeah, other teams got better, but I mean, baseball's a long season. Like, am I supposed to believe that, like, some of these other teams that are unproven just because they added a bunch of guys? Like, we have no idea how this guy's chemistry is going to come together. I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, I can't believe the people are acting like the Dodgers adding more guys is, look at them adding more guys. It's like, well, what if they get injured? Then what happens?
Right. And I noticed there was a ranking recently. I don't know who did it, but it was ranking the teams in the end in major leagues, I guess. And they had the Phillies, I think, 6th, which was great. But the Mets and the Braves were both ranked ahead of them and the same division. So just you can have all the success you want, but until you climb over those other two guys, it's not gonna matter much. It's gonna be I think they're in the toughest division in baseball. It's gonna be a really interesting race and see how things unfold.
I mean, the other thing is, remember the last time they reached the World Series, they were a wild card team. So
Yep, that's true.
maybe
There's
being
no
6
guarantee.
is a good thing. Maybe
there you go.
Maybe they're better as underdogs. Maybe
Right,
they're
sneak
better
under the radar.
climbing the ladder instead of waiting their turn.
They can get that from the Eagles, right? Hungry dogs run faster. There you go.
Right, exactly. Maybe Jason Kelce give him a speech.
There you go.
Although at this point, Jason Kelsey's too busy with his 20 other obligations. So
Right. Yeah, that's true.
he's Dave Weinberg. Of course, Extra Point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Of course, at Dave Weinberg 19 on the Twitter X platform. And he joins us each and every Wednesday here for Weinberg Wednesdays live from Gusto Brewing in North Cape May. Dave, go say hi to Zach and all the folks down there for me. I appreciate you jumping on. We'll talk soon.
I absolutely will, Josh. Thanks again as always. I appreciate it. Talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Great conversation with Dave Weinberg today here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll squeeze in a text before we hit the break. 609-403-0973. Steven Benner chimes in and says Schwarber should protect Harper. At least if the Phillies go 1-2-3, Schwarber leads off the second. His lineup, Steven Ventnor's, is Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Bohm, Castellanos, Marsh, Realmuto, Kepler. Well, I'm not a fan of this lineup for one reason. I don't think Stott should be the leadoff hitter, Steve. I think Stott needs to prove that last year was an anomaly more than before I'm ready to put him number one, because Stott claims that he had this elbow injury that impacted his season last year, but we never heard about this elbow injury almost all of last year. I'm starting to turn into the guy who doesn't believe people when they say they're injured, and I hate being that guy, but it's starting to become very common in sports where all these athletes start coming out and saying, I was injured, I was hurt, and it's like, well, why didn't we know you were hurt the entire year? It just feels so weird. You get the Sixers who want to tell you everyone is injured, but then the other three teams want to tell you that nobody's injured until next year. It's just so odd. So to me, I don't trust Stott yet. This is a prove it year for me for Bryson Stott, because as far as I'm concerned, if he doesn't have a good enough year, he is completely expendable, and it's time to put Aiden Miller in this starting lineup. And if that means bumping Turner to second base or center field, or having Aiden Miller play second base, or whatever the scenario is, I think Stott this is a prove it year for him. So to me, if it was my lineup, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Bohm, and then do what you want with the lineup after that. If you want to keep Castellanos behind Bohm, I don't hate it. I would then put probably Stott after Castellanos, then Realmuto, Marsh, and then, frankly, I hate Kepler being on this team. I really do. Why do we have 2 million lefties? Like, what in the Phillies thinking is, let's bring in another left-handed hitter for this stinking lineup? Like, come on, man. All these teams around baseball are loading up on left-handed pitching because you have 1 million left-handers. They need more competent right-handed hitting. I get it. Kepler's going to play because he has to, or because you have some weird commitment to Marsh going back to center field. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. All right, coming up next, more football talk. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press joins us live from Indianapolis with me, Josh Hennig, here on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the Sixers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Yabusele in, Maxey for three. It's up and good. Oh, yeah. He's been known with the prolific fourth quarters.
It's Sixers Knicks tonight. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Sixers basketball all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia 76ers basketball. 97.3 ESPN.
Rise and shine, Valentine. All month long, you be the commander-in-chief. The savings are presidential. You just sign and drive at Matt Blatt Mitsubishi with 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days, or 0% for 60 months on all remaining 24 Outlander Sports in stock. But they won't last. Get yours before they're gone. Brand new Outlander PHEV, 0 security deposits, and just $399 per month lease. Yep, just sign and drive it home. Maybe you're a first-time buyer, or you've been turned down for a loan. Matt Blatt Mitsubishi wants to finance your future, not your past. Bring in any trade, even if you're stuck in a current loan or lease. AJ the Trade Man wants to get you released and into a brand new 24 Outlander SUV, $29.99 with 0 down and 0 payments for 90 days.
Simply
Mitsubishi. Lease qualifications exist with approved credit. 1666 for 1000 finance on in-stock 2024 Outlander Sports. Not all will qualify. Go to mattplattmitsubishi.com for complete details or call 844-946-2315. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Expires 3/4/25. Matt Platt Mitsubishi in the heart of Glassboro for 30 years.
Shopping with your parents can be embarrassing.
Why would they sell jeans with holes in them? I'm going to speak to the manager.
Mom!
That hoodie is giving. You should get it. YOLO.
Thanks to the Chase mobile app, your kid can shop independently while you keep an eye on their spending. So you can go from
We can be twinsies.
To
How was shopping? Saw you stayed on budget.
Thanks, Mom.
freedom for kids, control for parents. That's family banking from Chase.
Account subject to approval. Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank N.A. member FDIC.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. Well, Hims can help. Through Hims.com, you can get a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. It all starts with an online intake form. Get started at hims.com/radio, and from there, a medical provider licensed in your state will determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs with options up to 95% less than the brand names. Millions of men experience ED, but Hims can help. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. HIMS.com/RADIO.
When you're in the thick of a project, Harbor Freight is the place that always comes in handy. Whether you're picking up something for your pickup truck or a power tool for your project, at Harbor Freight, your dollar always goes further. And these days, when everything seems to cost more, you can take pride in knowing that you get hard-working tools at hard-working prices. Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a walk-up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbor's dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states.
Your old or broken phone can let you down. But at Verizon, trade in any old phone from our top brands and get iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence with a new line on My Plan and iPad and Apple Watch Series 10. After all, you don't want your old phone to die on you when you're lost.
Perfect.
Or for your broken phone to glitch at the worst possible time.
Hey, can I get your number? Oh.
Trade in your old phone for a brand new iPhone 16 Pro, iPad, and Apple Watch. Visit Verizon.com today. Additional terms apply. Service plan required for Apple Watch and iPad.
With GMF financing, to qualify buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's President's Day all month long at Bennett Chevy. You know there's lots of President's Day sales, but none like Bennett Chevy, who beat them all. Right now, Bennett's selling new Chevys at the true GM supplier employee pricing and not a penny more. Plus, you keep all the rebates, saving you thousands. You'll save even more with available 0% financing. And right now, Bennett's paying a minimum $10,000 for any old trade towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum 10 grand for the worst clunker. Imagine how much you'll get for a good trade. And Bennett's non-commissioned sales team is paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So there's no pressure trying to sell you more. No back and forth negotiations. No waiting around for a manager. No, not at Bennett Chevy, because Bennett is really different and you're gonna love it. So get to Bennett Chevy's President's Day sale and save now. Together, let's drive. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
We'll check back at the text board a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. I see Jeff from Ocean City over there, but right now we'll get more into the NFL talk as we go live in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, which is, I think they need to rename this, Rob. I think Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press needs to come up with a better name, because obviously, Rob, half of this week is the NFL Draft, and the other half of it is the NFL world and the news cycle going wild. I'm glad to see that you are surviving so far. How you doing, my friend?
What's going on, Josh? It's like the NFL world is here, right? The entire world is here. It's kind of, in some ways, who did I call? I heard one of the coaches call it like speed dating with the players because they get these short little interview opportunities with the college prospects. So I've been here now 48 hours. I haven't spoken to one draft prospect yet at all because it's been nonstop NFL news. It's been availabilities with coaches and GMs. So tomorrow I'll get to some draft prospects, and they weren't made available anyway until to the media until today, but it overlapped with some other events and meetings going on. But wouldn't you know, the Eagles are like a hot topic because of the tush push. Like out of everything else going on and everything else that I'm tweeting about, and it's the tush push that's getting all of this attention and everything associated with it. So it's pretty fascinating to see that.
Well, you mentioned right there about the tush push. I love the tweet that you put out at Rob Maaddi, what Troy Vincent said about how there's been 0 injuries because of the tush push. And it's ironic that people keep bringing up health and safety. And it's like, well, the real reason why it should be in a conversation, Rob, is if you go to the NFL rule book, technically the tush push is not supposed to be allowed. But apparently it's a gray area. So I feel like it's one of those examples of people, let me scream how I hate something, but I'm going to give you all the wrong reasons why you should not like it too.
Yeah, it's funny that some of the detractors or the arguments against it and hearing some of those guys yesterday, like I love what Todd Bowles said. And of course, Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers are one of the few teams that actually had success against it. He's like, just learn how to stop it. Like that's what you got to do. Nick Caserio today, the Texans GM, said the same thing. But some of those people who are arguing against it are raising injury concerns. And then when we're in, I asked Troy Vincent today, and he's like, 0. I'm like, do you mean that you don't have the data yet? Or no, he's like, no, 0 injuries. We had none were reported on it. So well, then where is this coming from? And then a league spokesman clarified. He's like, well, I think the health and safety concerns are about potential injuries. Well, there's potential injuries with just about anything you do. Like you get in a car, there's potential injuries. God forbid you're flying. I'm terrified flying these days. I was on Southwest here and going back on it and just saw they had another almost mishap the other day. There's potential injuries there. So you can't ban a play for the potential of injuries when it's been run for 3 years without any injuries. I would say the rate of injury, the risk factor on that is 0 given that. So it's interesting, man. I don't anticipate it being banned because you're going to need 24 teams to vote against it. And that means only 8 for it. And I should do an informal survey because I feel like every time I hear somebody say I've been posting it. So, all right, you got the Texans. Caserio says he's all for it.
Todd Bowles says he's for it.
Todd Bowles said he's for it. That's 2. I'm going to start listing all the guys, and once I get to 9, be like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Of course, a coach can say. John Harbaugh said he's okay with it. So that's.
I'm sure Jim Harbaugh is okay with it too, considering what he was wearing today.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but he's a football man.
Jim looks like he's ready to go buck hunting, man. I mean, he's got the flannel and the jeans and everything. Like the Chargers GM, I forget what he is wearing. He's got the quarter zip. He looks professional. He's got the Chargers logo. Yeah, like he looks like a GM, and Jim Harbaugh looks like they just dragged him in from deer hunting. He's just like, I gotta be here,
which they probably did, right? They probably did. He's an Indianapolis guy. Played for the Colts, right? This is kind of home for him.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, senior NFL writer, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN live from Indianapolis. Speaking of the Eagles, I thought what Howie said was very interesting yesterday, Rob, because he mentioned about how, hey, you can't put us into a box. saying what we've done in the past we're always going to do. And it made me think of, hey, they signed Saquon Barkley last year, right? And it seems like more and more that Zach Bond is going to be back with this team, that the Eagles are going to rectify the mistake of 2 years ago when they didn't even attempt to bring back T.J. Edwards. T.J. Edwards came out, Rob, and said they didn't even offer me any contract. Like, he was hoping they offered him something. Zach Bond feels like he is going to be the Howie learning from his mistake of this cycle.
And they certainly need him. He's an important player, important piece of the team. I just hope it's not a. I trust in Howie not to overpay, but you also can get caught up in. I think the Phillies did this when they won the World Series back in 2008, overpaying some of the guys, and Zach Bond to me is a big piece, but also a player that, if things didn't work out, isn't going to be the death of the defense. And he was extremely valuable. He was an All-Pro. He was a finalist for AP Defensive Player of the Year. Just a phenomenal season. And I think they'll find a way. And I think they'll find a way to make it work. They're not going to keep everybody. We know that, right? And they're going to have Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. There's going to be guys that they're not, and Mekhi Becton, that they're not going to be able to keep. It's just the nature of the sport. It's just the nature of the business. But I caught up with Howie today, and we were just talking about something completely off football, off topic. And then he looks at it, he's like, I got to go find some more football players. Like it's what it's all about. And he's earned the benefit of the doubt after years of some mishaps in the draft process. Just look at the last 2 years. Look at the guys that they've brought in: Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, even panning out right after a year. And it looked like at this point, after his rookie season, he didn't look like he was going to be somebody that could be a big factor. And then he steps up, and the defense was they bring in Vic Fangio, and everything works out. So I think they've got to go back to work. Obviously, they've been back to work. They know what they need to do to get things done, but there's no reason to believe that there's going to be a big drop off for the Eagles next year. I don't think the Cowboys are going to leap by them. Nobody thinks the Giants will. It's the Eagles and the Commanders. And we saw the difference between the Eagles and Washington in the NFC Championship game. That wasn't a one-possession game. That was a absolute blowout. And I think that's what separates the two teams. And the Commanders have a lot of catching up to do.
By the way, speaking of the Eagles, I got to give you my my theory, okay, about the Eagles, because of that the fake news story about, the whole they don't want to go to the White House. And then we find out the White House hasn't even invited them yet. And then the Eagles saying, no, we'll go if we're invited. And my theory, Rob, is that I think a lot of the hate around this Eagles team is convenient, because I think there's a lot of people who are wrong about this team. They were wrong about the coach. They were wrong about the quarterback. And it's very convenient that a lot of the people that are named a lot when people criticize the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, why'd they give all that money to Saquon Barkley, right? And yet those are all the same guys who conveniently give credit to God and Jesus for their success. It seems like a very convenient cycle going on. People are trying to say that Jalen Hurts hates the president when that was a fake news story as well. Very convenient that they're only attacking the guys who talk about their faith.
Huh, interesting. I didn't make that correlation, and I didn't think anything of that story when it came out, and didn't say anything, didn't put anything out there because I didn't want to get into the politics, but knew it wasn't the case immediately, because as soon as you put anything remotely political on social media, you're going to get. So I completely avoided that. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, first of all, you got to consider the source. Then you got to consider, like, what is this? It's recycled nonsense. Just from common knowledge, the invitations are never like a week after the Super Bowl. It's always in June sometime. It's like right around OTAs and before training camp and all that stuff. So none of it made sense. I did see something interesting, though. Malcolm Jenkins, who was a major force in the locker room when they didn't want to go the last time they won a Super Bowl. I don't know if it's a podcast or if it's a newsletter that he put out there, but he said whether or not Jalen goes is making a major statement. And I just thought that was interesting that Malcolm is trying to bring Jalen Hurts into that conversation of taking a like I didn't know that was at this point right now where everything is in the world. It just raised some eyebrows for me.
It did. By the way, we should also note that this is the quote-unquote source of the British tabloid that originally reported the story. It's the same source that told people that Nick Sirianni is getting fired after the bye week. So we should also keep that.
Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, I did some digging on this, Rob. I did some digging on this because I was curious.
It was so. This is a tabloid, right? It's
a British tabloid called The Sun.
Yeah, a British tabloid. What sources do they have in the Eagle? Like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh come on, it's absolute garbage. But I don't know. For a few hours, I'm sure people were all over it.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Before I let you go, a couple quick hitters around the rest of the league I want to ask you about. What is your take on this Matthew Stafford stuff? Sean McVay says he wants him back. He would love to have him back, but the Rams are letting him explore his options. We know his wife loves being in L.A. because of her podcasts and her media stuff. So what is your take on the Stafford and the Rams situation?
I think they're just letting him see what the open market is, what the value could be for him before they eventually figure out a way to make each other happy. I know a story came out today and that Tom Brady was skiing with him from a Fox reporter, but then Ian Rappaport from NFL Networks, like they just ran into each other at a ski resort. And if Tom Brady's getting involved in the competition, and obviously I certainly I know that Tom Brady's involved, and John Spytek said that yesterday. Pete Carroll said that yesterday in everything that they're doing. He's a curious guy. He's got input. He's got obviously a lot of connections, but that could be one way to lure Matthew Stafford out of LA. I don't think it's like an imminent situation where he's going to be traded because they've allowed him to explore or see what his value is. I think it's more of see what your value is, come back, maybe we can make something work. The fact that Sean McVay wants him back, the fact that they're a winning team with him, and shoot, they were close to beating the Eagles, like a touchdown away at the end, and they were driving, right? And the pass, Jalen Carter makes two great plays at the end. So I think ultimately he's going to end up going back.
Which of the players who have been rumored to be traded do you think is most likely to get traded? I'm going to give you the three names, okay? You got Jonathan Allen from Washington, Harold Landry from Tennessee, and Jair Alexander from the Packers. Which of those three do you think is most likely to get moved?
Can I go Deebo Samuel?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. Why not? Spice it up.
Yeah, I think Deebo is.
Does Deebo get traded for any of those three guys? How about that?
Or, and I don't know if it's a trade. Got to look at the numbers and the ramifications. It could be a flat outright release. But John Lynch just said that they're going to honor his request for a fresh start. So I'm kind of cheating because that's pretty much, hey, all right, bye-bye. See you later. He's gone when the GM says they're going to honor his request for a fresh start. So I think that's certainly going to end up, which is for the 49ers to think about the weapons that they have, Christian McCaffrey situation, coming back off injury, another year older. Can he stay healthy? That's a big loss. George Kittle's just another year older. Brandon Ayuk's coming back off an injury. 49ers to get back to where they expect to be, that would be a huge loss in moving on from Deebo Samuel. So they got to make some additions in the offseason.
Well, the only problem is I just looked up his contract. That is, cutting him or trading him before June 1st is a bad idea, to say the least. You're talking about a almost $32 million in dead money and
Wow.
a negative cap savings of $15 million. So if you go post June 1st, it's a dead cap of $10 million and a cap savings of $5 million. So I feel like if they're going to move him, there's going to need to be some salary and contract restructuring there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a tough one for the 49ers and how they're going to swallow it out. But hey, teams have proven, the Denver Broncos last year, that you could take on a massive dead cap money hit and still field a winning team and a playoff team. So it's happened in the past. They got so many great players and there's a lot of work that they got to do, but it's not like they move on from Deebo and they don't have anybody else to Ricky Pearsall's right there too, to step in. And he's not quite Deebo yet, but he's got a high ceiling.
Also, knowing Shanahan's background, he could always draft another wide receiver as well, because we know he loves those receivers and coaching them up. So that's his.
Everybody raves about the running backs in this draft, Josh. Everybody here is talking about the running back draft. Not so much quarterbacks, right? But big on running backs, big on second, third, fourth round talent. Some people have said like the top 10, outside of the top 10, anybody going in later round in the first round might as well be like also a second round pick. So it's high on defensive players too as well.
Rob Maaddi, at Rob Maaddi on the Twitter X platform, AP senior NFL writer, of course, covers the NFL year round, and also co-host of Faith on the Field, heard Saturday and Sunday mornings right here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy Indianapolis and stay warm. I know you've been getting used to that Florida weather.
Oh, man, thank you. I appreciate it, buddy. Keep up the great work.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN as we wrap up the Power Hour. Steve chimes in on the YouTube, at Josh Hennig on YouTube, says Eagles need a running back. He says, I think that Jonathan Allen is most likely to get traded. I know Myles Garrett wants out. The problem with Myles Garrett, though, is that he's got to restructure his contract to get out. That's the huge prohibitive element with him. Jeff from Ocean City chimes in, I don't care what the Phillies do. They just got to try something different. You know, Jeff from Ocean City, I think what you said is 100% true, because I think there's a lot of people who they look at the Phillies and they just want them to be willing to do something different. You know, it's the idea that, you know, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result. It absolutely is insane. Thanks to Dave Weinberg. Thanks, Rob Maaddi, for joining me today. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Sixers basketball next. And for the YouTube-only crowd, thank you for staying tuned in. I wanted to hit on something really quick before I got out of here. And that is, you know, when you look around the sports world in general, you know, and all this stuff with the players getting traded, you know, and I see Steven chiming in on the YouTube channel with a bunch of different points. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of those points really quick because, you know, there's a lot of speculation about where Matthew Stafford might go. There's a lot of speculation about Jonathan Allen, Trent Williams, and all kinds of stuff. So I want to kind of hit on a couple of those points really quick before I wrap this up and I get back to my day job. As I've said many times here on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig, you know, the more you guys engage with me on the YouTube, the more that you guys like, subscribe, share with your friends, the more content we can produce, and the more time I can dedicate to having these conversations with all of you over here. But I just wanted to hit on a couple of these points from Steven, because I think that, you know, Steven is a football fan, obviously, because he's asking me and bringing up points that I think are worthwhile. So I just want to kind of hit on them really quick, because he mentions about, you know, Matthew Stafford. I heard he may go to the Niners, okay? So here's the deal with Stafford, okay? And I keep trying to explain this, and I don't know if everyone's hearing me or not. Okay, I'm not trying to criticize anybody overtly here. I'm just trying to be realistic. So here's the deal. For those who don't know the story, Matthew Stafford's wife has a podcast, and she really wanted him to go to Los Angeles because she wanted to launch her own media influencer, whatever. Okay, I'm a little confused about what exactly she does, except for podcasting and posting a lot on social media and being a mother. I think that's pretty much all she does, but I know she's verbalized it differently about herself, so I don't want to get that wrong, okay? But apparently his wife is going to have a say in where he goes. The reason why he won't go to the Niners is because it's in the same division. Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan are kind of like frenemies. They worked together for years in Washington, but ever since they parted ways, Kyle and Sean, they got a really weird relationship. For those who don't know, I've been reading the book, The Why Is Everything, and it's about all those coaches from that Washington team, when it was Mike Shanahan was head coach, Kyle Shanahan was OC, and also on the same staff was Sean McVay, Robert Saleh, Raheem Morris, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur. They were all on the same staff together. It's like a ridiculous, coincidence, right? But ever since those two parted ways, McVay and Shanahan, there's been a very awkward element to their relationship, and they don't hate each other necessarily, but they just don't get along. I'll put it, okay? I'm trying to simplify it. So I don't see him going to the Niners in any scenario, okay? I think that the McVay-Shanahan grudge is strong enough, and the fact he's in the same division. This isn't Donovan McNabb getting dumped on Washington because Daniel Snyder is an imbecile, okay? You don't have one side taking advantage of the other side in this situation. So I don't see it happening. I do think there's some legitimacy to the Stafford Raiders rumors only because of the fact it's a different conference. I think that if the Rams were to trade him, he would get traded to the AFC, and I think that's why the Browns have a little legitimacy. But again, I don't really think Stafford wants to leave. I think what Stafford wants is he wants to be paid what he thinks he's worth, because you're talking about a guy who he barely has any guaranteed money left. This is the last year of his guaranteed money. He's going to be turning 37 years old, and only $4 million out of his $23 million is guaranteed. He has a roster bonus worth $4 million. He has basically he has incentives that, if you add them up, get him over $27 million. Now, their salary commitment to him is still on the books for next year, but obviously you can restructure that, and I think Stafford really wants them to restructure. I think Stafford wants one more shot at the apple. I think that if it was his preference, he would like the Rams to just be like, look, we're going to rework your deal. Here's $35 million for 2025. We can cut bait next year. You can leave. We can leave. We all part. Nobody gets hurt. I think that's what Stafford really wants. I don't think he actually wants to go and leave L.A. When I asked the question about who gets most likely to get traded, he says Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen is fascinating because, remember, there was a time that Washington had all of those top picks, right? Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. I mean, their entire D line was just like stud. And over time, they've basically shed all of those guys. They've removed all of those guys from the equation. And so I'm curious to find out, is Washington talking about moving on from Allen for what reason? Jonathan Allen played most of last season injured. And, as I for those of you who know, I like to listen to player podcasts. I've heard a lot of guys from Bo Allen to Chris Long to other players like Ross Tucker. They have all said that the injury that Allen sustained, that pectoral injury, he came back early from that injury. So does Washington know something about his health and his injury history that the rest of the league doesn't know yet, and they're trying to sell damaged goods? That would be my question about Allen, and I think that's an interesting name to throw out there. Steven goes on to say, who do the Eagles keep in free agency? I'm going to pull up the list again, and I'm just going to run down. So these are all the Eagles free agents, okay? I think they keep Zach Bond. I think Zach Bond is here. Sweat is gone. I still think Graham retires. I don't think he's coming back. If he does come back, it'll be on a very team-friendly deal. Milton Williams and Mekhi Becton, as I said earlier, I think they are both 50-50 propositions. And I say that because I don't think either one of those guys wants to leave, but I don't know if Philadelphia is going to give both of those guys the contracts that they want. I think if I had to pick between the two, I think Becton stays at a below market value, and then Milton Williams leaves because he gets blown out of the water financially. And then when it comes to that kind of like next tier of guys, Johnson, he'll probably be back on a cheap deal. Avonte Maddox is gone. Rick Lovato is back. Kenny Gainwell, probably back. Not 100% sure on that. Oren Burks, probably back. Uzama, Driscoll, Gates, Clark, nobody cares. I'm just being honest with you guys. I don't think anybody cares about some of those guys. So we're going to move on. Steven brings up the Eagles and the Cowboys trading. They didn't trade Devonta and Micah. They traded draft picks that became those players. It's very different when you're trading actual players. When you're trading draft assets, I think it's a hugely different conversation. Okay? I think that when you look at, for example, your trade draft picks, it's kind of like, it's almost like a blind exchange. It's like, I'm giving you something, you're giving me something. I don't really know what we're getting, but it's a lot more difficult when you say, I'm going to trade player for player with division rivals. I always go back to the McNabb example because people forget the Eagles basically shystered Washington, and that was 15 years ago now? People forget McNabb was near the end of the line, and Andy knew that McNabb was near the end of the road before a lot of other teams did. Daniel Snyder was so intent on getting a quote-unquote star as his quarterback that you have a situation where Philadelphia basically was able to make a team like Washington, at the time the Redskins, now the Commanders, basically make a decision that was not in their best interest. And, of course, we all know how history played out. Mike Shanahan and Donovan McNabb, they couldn't get along. It was an absolute disaster. And, by the way, the other part of this conversation is when you talk about division teams making moves with each other, it's usually like that. It's usually draft picks being swapped. We have seen, for example, the Eagles swap picks with pretty much everyone in their division at some point. So I do think that that's why that would happen, and you wouldn't see actual players getting moved around. And, at the end of the day, I do think that Stafford, if I had to put a number on it, I think it's 66% Stafford stays in Los Angeles. It's a dome. His wife and his family love LA. And I think Stafford just wants one more shot at winning a championship. And look, you know, there's all this talk about them moving on from Cooper Kupp. And I am genuinely curious to find out, does Cooper Kupp actually get traded? Or is that a leverage play for some other move? Because if they do trade him, you know, who's to say, and I got to double check what Cooper Kupp's contract is, but I think that Cooper has similar language in it to what Myles Garrett does. So who's to say that Kupp couldn't be traded for Garrett, for goodness sake? Let me look at this contract here. Yeah, that's a lot of dead money for 2025. I mean, $22 million in dead money for Cooper Kupp. I mean, that is like getting slapped in the face. If they cut him, it's now if they trade Cooper Kupp, that's where maybe you get a tiny bit of relief. It's a $17 million dead cap hit and $12 million savings. So they would have to trade him to get any value out of it. You know, who's to say that any of these players who are being rumored, right? Jair Alexander of the Packers, Jonathan Allen of Washington, Harold Landry of the Titans, Myles Garrett of the Browns. Who's to say that Cooper Kupp is not the guy who gets traded for one of those guys? Because at the end of the day, it's not like the NBA where you literally match the numbers, right? It's the idea that you got to be in the neighborhood. And then it's kind of like gymnastics at that point. How good at gymnastics are you? How good are you at playing around with the money? How willing are you to give out signing bonuses? You know, one of the problems NFL teams have, and I'll let you guys go here, is that when you sign a contract, in the NFL, it's not in every sport. This is NFL specifically that we're talking about. When you sign a player to a contract and you say that, and let's use Cooper Kupp's contract as our example, okay? Cooper Kupp is currently on a contract that he signed the extension in 2022. The contract was valued at $80 million, but only $35 million was guaranteed. So the way that $35 million works is, okay? Now, again, that's not the signing bonus. That's the guaranteed total money. That's the signing bonus plus whatever annual base salary might be involved. In Cooper Kupp's case, it's kind of like an up and down number. But the larger point is, the moment that in the NFL that you sign somebody and say, this number guaranteed, that money goes immediately into an escrow account. And when it goes into that escrow account, the NFL team can no longer touch it. That money is set aside and dedicated to players. Well, if you notice the teams that don't like to give out, you know, restructuring contracts or putting money into escrow or don't want to give out big signing bonuses, those are the teams that have cash flow problems. Teams like the Raiders, for example, have cash flow problems. They don't have 36, 40, 50 million on hand to just throw away into an escrow account, because those teams are waiting for the league revenue redistribution that happens every year for them to get that money. They're dependent on the league television money to pay the players. So for a guy like Cooper Kupp, for a guy like Myles Garrett, for a guy of any of these guys, if your team is unwilling to renegotiate your contract, that might be because you don't have a lot of money on hand. You're not willing to put money into escrow. So a lot of times when you look at teams, and I'm specifically using the teams that I know for a fact that have money flow problems, okay? Not that they're broke, not that they're negative. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything or bad money management. It's just that some of these owners don't have a ton of surplus money, okay? But it is teams like the Las Vegas Raiders. It is teams like the Arizona Cardinals. It is teams, like the now Los Angeles Chargers. It is teams, and again, like the Cincinnati Bengals. This is not saying they are bad franchises, poorly run. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything. But they are teams that don't have the surplus of cash. Like, for example, the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, these are all organizations that have a surplus of cash. So it's easy for them to renegotiate, give you money up front, put that money away in the account, or pay you immediately up front to alleviate their cap. Some of the other teams, they don't have the resources to do that. And that is why the whole Bengals situation is really dicey, because the Bengals have 3 guys they have to pay. Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They can't pay all of them. Why? Because they don't have enough money that they can put aside in escrow because of the guarantees the players want. Players always want guaranteed money. Look at the Browns. The Browns guaranteed over $200 million to Deshaun Watson. You know what they had to do? $200 million immediately went to escrow. And then what happens? Now the Browns can't give Myles Garrett a restructure. Why? Because they don't have the money on hand because they're idiots and they had to put over $200 million in escrow and let it just sit there to pay Deshaun Watson every year. So it's really dumb. It's really dumb what some of these teams do. It's like, hey, we have the money on hand. Let's spend it frivolously like the Browns do. So, it's a very strange economics of the NFL, and I understand that for some people, it's a little frustrating because some things seem like common sense, and then the teams don't do it. So, thank you, Steven, for your questions. I always appreciate answering you guys' questions and having these conversations because, I am a big believer that the more you guys can learn, the more informed of a fan you are going to be. And, the more informed you are and the more informed I am, the better conversations we can have. And it just makes the world make a little more sense. And the beautiful thing about sports is that a lot of this stuff is straightforward. It's not as complicated as some people try to make it out to be. The beauty of sports is that we don't have to make it complicated. It can just be what it is, and we can talk about it, and we can enjoy it. And as I look over my shoulder, the Sixers and Knicks game started, and I just don't care. I'm going to watch it because it's my job, but I don't care. Sixers are an abomination. Paul George should be embarrassed of himself. I didn't get a chance to get into that, but Paul George, the dude literally said he's going to stop his podcast on February 25th because he needs to focus on the rest of the year. What are we doing for the last 3 months, Paul George? And as I said, it's a shame that the people don't care about the Flyers more because the Flyers are the most fun team in Philadelphia right now. Phillies are in spring training. Okay. It's more of like, daytime laid back sport. The basketball team is trash. But at least get the NFL offseason. Thanks to all of you for watching on my YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends. I appreciate all of you who tune in each and every day, whether it's on the live session or the replay, all here on my YouTube channel later on. Have a great night, everybody. I got to get back to my work. I got a to-do list I got to finish before I go to the gym tonight. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you tomorrow right here on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig and as well on 97.3 ESPN